So today we're going to talk about kind of the introductory parts, all about pressure washing. So we're going to talk about the chemicals that we use, and we're going to talk about the different tools that we do to apply the chemicals and our process kind of A to Z. So just general nutshell overview. You can see I've got all kinds of jugs of random different junk, and we don't need all of that. We just need a few things. First and foremost, we have SH or sodium hypochlorite or bleach or pool shock. There's a lot of different names for the same thing, but it's sodium chloride is the base of it. And this is what kills all organic matter. And so if you've got black spots from algae or mold, this is the go-to. So anything that happens organically, this kills it. So you also have to be careful with your plants and anything else that could be delicate. It could kill that as well. So you want to make sure if you're applying bleach or any other chemical that you spray down everything in the vicinity with just plain water first. And if you think about it, plants are thirsty, they want to drink. They'll drink any liquid they can find. And so if you fill up the area with the water first, it drinks up the liquid from the water and it's full. So then if you spray bleach on it, it's not going to be thirsty anymore, and so it's just going to be on the surface, and if you rinse it off after, you don't have to worry about that plant pulling in all that extra bleach. And so the plant will have a much higher chance of survival. And so we try not to kill plants, we try to avoid it. And if it ever does happen with something delicate, that comes out of our pocket. We want to make sure our customers are satisfied and that we don't cause damage. We only want to help clean things. So that's the primary chemical that we're going to use. The next most frequent chemical we use would be a degreaser. And so you can get something really nice online from specialized for pressure washing, or you could go, they sell this at I believe AutoZone, Purple Power, and then they have another version of it over here, Zip Industrial Purple Degreaser. That's something you just buy a big jug from Home Depot or Lowe's, and any degreaser can get the job done in most situations. Sometimes you need a little bit heavier duty to lift things up, but that will typically work for stains left from oil or tire marks. If they have a barbecue and they've dropped some grease, that's the main thing you would use in those situations, a degreaser. So it loosens things up and helps to break it off of the surface of the concrete. Now, having said that, with oil stains in particular, we have kind of a limited timeline. Concrete is porous, and so if oil spills onto the concrete, it begins to penetrate the surface and dig deep within. So the longer the oil sits and soaks, the deeper into the concrete it will go. So you get a surface cleaner, you get a pressure washer, you turn up the heat, whatever you want to do, it's still going to only take off what's close to the surface. And so you can use special chemicals that will treat it with an enzyme, and it will actually eat away at the actual oil and penetrate into the surface so that you can have a little better better experience in the long run, where it comes out a little bit cleaner. It typically won't cure the stain from the oil 100% if it's been sitting there for longer than a week. So make sure that you are clear with your customer. There will oftentimes still be a shadow remaining after the oil stain has been removed. You don't guarantee perfection. Even if you think you can get there, it's better to err on the side of caution and say, hey, we won't be able to get it 100%, but we'll make it as good as it can be. So we started with bleach for organic. We got degreasers for things like tire marks and rubber or stuff that can be broken up of that nature. But then we have another category where we need to use acids. And so acids can be used to brighten the concrete, restore that newer look, and it can also be used to treat rust stains or efflorescence in brick and stone. And so there's a large gamut of things you can use. One of the easiest go-to would be muriatic acid, but it's very dangerous. If you ever use this, you want to make sure you're covered with a mask, all the proper protection equipment, PPE if you will. So again, this is very dangerous. It can destroy your lungs. It could kill you, it could burn you, all kinds of bad things with muriatic acid, but it's very effective against things like rust and other chemical stains. And it also brightens the concrete if you want to have a nice restored look. Sometimes if you have oil stains and you can't get the oil stain all the way out, you can kind of offset that by brightening the concrete a little bit. So it has its place, just it takes a lot more research. So if you're early on, just getting started, be very careful. Don't just jump into this all willy-nilly. Take your time and educate yourself on the causes and effects, and as well as the hazards that come with using some type of an acid. Now, another thing. LA is totally awesome. This is a pretty great butyl-based cleaner. And so if you've ever noticed tiger striping on gutters, sometimes it's like a black rubbery looking stain. And if you ever are cleaning something and the bleach just doesn't work with it, maybe you even try a degreaser and that doesn't quite work with it, you still have some dark spots or streaks. LA Totally Awesome is a bit aggressive, so you have to be careful, but it's cheap and you can find it in local hardware and grocery stores. And so it can be very effective in a lot of situations. And the primary chemical in it that does the work is butyl. So you can find other butyl-based cleaners, but this is just a cheap one. Whenever I'm trying to get rid of tiger stripes on gutters, those dark up and down stripes, this works, but it can also strip the paint off. So you have to be careful, don't let it dry on there. Especially gutters get a lot of sun exposure, and so you can have paint that's already is primed to come off. And you want to avoid that if possible, so you have to be really careful. Wet it first, hit it with the measurements that are told on the bottle. Don't go beyond that because it can be very aggressive. I do prefer, if I had an employee working for me with a little less experience and we wanted to make it look nice, they have products like Gutter Butter or Gutter Grenade, others like it, that will do the same job with a little bit more, it's just a little bit more careful of a chemical that's specifically designed for that, and is a little less aggressive, but it does what you need it to do very well. But this is kind of the cheap placeholder that does a really effective job if you're trying to just kind of save a couple dollars. Now, beyond that, there's specialty chemicals, and every brand that's out there at every pressure washing store will have their own versions of the same things. Back to the rust removal thing, you can use something like F8 products where it comes in a powder form. The benefit of powder form things is it's highly condensed, highly concentrated, no liquid in it. Something like the F9 products is going to weigh a lot, so you have to factor in shipping, and it's going to be a lot more water in this gallon than there is the actual chemical that does the work. And so the F8 chemicals I've found to have decent results in different situations. This we actually use more on wood for cleaning and restoring wood. We don't want to use bleach on wood if we can avoid it. We might, if we do use bleach on wood, we want to make sure we spray it and get it nice and wet first, just like we would with plants. Otherwise, the bleach can completely destroy the actual wood that's there. It loses its structural integrity and it literally just bleaches us out. And so you're just kind of killing the dead wood, whereas something like this is a little safer to use on it. It won't take away from the structural integrity of the product. So it has its place. It can be used as a concrete brightener as well. I've used it on minor rust stains, but what I have the best results out of everything for rust would clearly be F9 bark, battery acid, restoration and cleaning. And so this is fantastic. There's little pictures on it, and it really does clean as well as they advertise. The other thing with F9 products is you can go onto their website or look it up online, and they have a whole app. And if you're using their products, we have F-Low here and Bark here. But the entire they have another one that's really effective called Groundskeeper. But they have multiple in their line, and if you download their app, it will walk you through step by step, whatever situation you're coming across. You find that exact example, and it will walk you through the process of which chemical to apply in what order. So if you're newer to pressure washing and you want to make sure you're doing it right, and you want to offer some type of like concrete restoration where you're removing the rust spots and whatnot, it can be very lucrative. But these chemicals can be pretty pricey. I believe the F9 line, you can get it from windowcleaner.com. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description. You can actually get a combo pack with 4 of their primary ones. Their degreaser is one of the best for oil stains that I've run across, and that's Double Eagle, F9 Double Eagle. So I usually use F9 Double Eagle and the F9 Bark, because here in Texas we have a lot of oil stains and we have a lot of rust stains, and so those 2 chemicals get me through everything that I need. I have other things that I can supplement with, but if I'm carrying that product line, I know that I'm set for everything that I might run across. So that kind of sums up most of the chemicals, what we're going to apply in different situations, but now we got to figure out how to apply it. Now, if you don't have a pressure washer, don't worry. You can do everything you would with a pressure washer just using a simple bucket sprayer. Ideally, you want to get something that's going to stand up, where it's bleach resistant, and you can use more heavy grade chemicals without damaging the rubber seals as quickly. If you leave an acid in a sprayer like this, it can still deteriorate everything, even if it's bleach resistant. So you want to make sure that after you use it each time, you're going to empty it out and rinse it out with water and spray that water through, so that way every connection in here is going to maintain, it's going to stay sealed as long as possible, because the last thing you want to do is be spraying bleach up on a wall and now this seal breaks or this seal breaks, and now you're getting all that splattered right into your face. We want to avoid that and be as safe as we can, and that's one of the easiest ways. You preserve your equipment and it lasts a lot longer. So you can do everything you need to do with bleach or other chemicals using a pump sprayer and rinsing it off or agitating it with a brush. And so in general, we have kind of a few basic steps. You want to agitate what's over the surface and treat it with whatever's needed, and then rinse it clean. And then if you need to repeat, you do it again. If you have a pressure washer, it helps with the agitation and the rinsing to accelerate that. And that's where we have a difference between pressure washing and soft washing, or you might even include in the middle of that. If soft washing is on the far end and pressure washing is on the other end, where you're just using high pressure here, you're just using chemicals with low pressure here. In the middle, you have power washing, where you're using chemical and pressure in combination. And but you can do either direction as long as you're getting the surface clean. So what we have is, if you're doing just a pump sprayer, you can agitate it with a brush and then rinse it off, and you'll get really good results. Especially with organic growth, you hit it with bleach and you're good to go. Now, what accelerates it is, over here we have a 8-gallon per minute machine, and it's got a hot water burner on it. Hot water helps accelerate whatever chemical reaction is happening with the products that we're putting on there. So if we spray bleach using a hot water heater, it elevates the temperature up to about 100 degrees. Hotter temperatures mean it's going to act as a catalyst for the chemical reaction that's occurring. So when the bleach is doing its thing, it's going to make it happen faster. So you can actually use less bleach with more heat to get the same results. Or you could even skip using bleach, and the heat alone can do quite an effective job. Pressure can also do an effective job, but the higher the pressure is, the more you can cause erosion or different types of, you can destroy surfaces using extremely high pressure. You can take the surface coat straight off of concrete, especially if there's any type of a surface covering. So the surface that you're cleaning is very much important to understand, so that way you know if it's something that's a painted surface, or if it's a wooden surface, or if it's anything that could deteriorate more quickly. You want to use as little pressure as possible. Whereas if you're going straight against concrete and it's just basic concrete or stone, even stone, you have to be careful with pressure, because you can cut chips off of with it. We have a lot of natural stone here. It's primarily like a softer limestone here in Texas. Sometimes you get the flagstone as well, but that limestone is kind of delicate and it can get a lot of stains on it, and we need to treat it with chemicals. But if you were to spray heavy pressure into it, you could chip away at the rocks on the surface as well as the mortar that's in there. And you can actually, with enough pressure, you could just cut a brick right out of the whole place where it is, because a lot of the stone and a lot of the brick here in Texas, while it's like a full wall, oftentimes it can be more of a veneer than anything. And so if you're hitting it too hard, there's risks involved. Now 90 out of 100 times, or 99 out of 100 times, you might be okay. But as things progress, you just got to know what you're dealing with. And so that's why soft washing is so helpful, especially with something like a house wash, where you can avoid using something that would just destroy the surface. And then when you're reaching a higher height, say you're spraying from the ground and you want to get it up to the peak of a 2 or 3 story home, you're not going to have as much pressure at that length, and so you need the chemicals to get in there and do the work. Now, having said all that, this bucket's empty, but that's where surfactants come into play. Surfactants mix, and I use Peel Powers from windowcleaner.com. But there's a lot of surfactants out there that you can use. You can also use, some guys use Dawn. Now, the Dawn that used to exist had different chemicals in it that would react with the bleach, and it would kind of work against the power that the bleach had, but it would help it as a surfactant to cling to the surface. So Dawn is not created to be used with bleach. the chemicals that you would get from a supply store for professional pressure washers makes a tremendous difference, because it actually, one, it cuts the tension of the surface. Whatever is on that surface, whether it's like organic growth or what have you, the surfactant helps to penetrate that and accelerate the bleach doing its work. And when it's the proper type of chemical, it will actually help the bleach and not hinder it. Some degreasers will actually fight against what the bleach is doing, and if you have the degreaser mixed with the bleach in advance, which is what we often do if we're batch mixing or whatever, it will actually make the bleach, the chemical reaction will begin happening proactively before you get it onto the surface, and so it will kill the bleach over time. It makes it so that it decays faster. So when you use a properly designed surfactant from a professional supplier, it makes a tremendous difference so that you don't have to worry about that. And so I use that Peel Power from Window Cleaning Resource, and it also masks the smell, which is an added plus. Now, having said that, we're applying the chemical, and again, we can use a pump sprayer, but if we want to upgrade to a pressure washer, we have two primary ways to do it. This would be a downstream injector, and it connects wherever your hose comes out from the pressure washer. You connect straight there, somewhere between the pressure washing unit and the reel or the hose that you're using. And this goes right in the middle between them. So I typically hook up my hose right here. These reels are a little bit older, and so we just use the reels to store the cords. And so we roll out whatever we need to get the job done, and then hook it up here, and we'll have the chemical injector quick release right in between there and the hose. And so what happens is this hose drops down into a bucket. This is just a simple degreaser. So if we're hitting a hard surface like concrete and we just want to get some tire marks out of the way, we'll just use a simple degreaser and it will automatically suck through. And typically when you get your hose, or when you get your pressure washing unit, you have two types of nozzles. You have 4 different ones. You have a red tip that you never want to use. This is the yellow tip, which is a 15-degree angle. But then you have a 40-degree angle and a 60-degree angle. Then they're different colors. And then you have your black tip, which would be for spraying on chemical. I personally use, where'd it go? I like the M5 twist nozzle that goes with my chemical injector for my XJet. And this is just as well as doing any spray chemical, and you can adjust the angle of it so that if it's all the way tight, it'll go about a 45-degree angle, maybe a little bit more, and so you can spray chemical right in front of you, whereas you can open up all the way and it'll shoot in a straight line so you can reach a pretty high height. You can also get other different types of tips that allow the soap to be sucked out. And when you have a soap tip, it has a wider orifice. And with that wider orifice, the pressures per square inch, the PSI, is going to be lower. And you adjust the pressure that you're spraying based on the tip that you're using. If you have any of the designated pressure tips, when the pressure tip is on, there's a little valve, sorry, this is the wrong thing. There's a little valve in the downstream sprayer. When the pressure is high, that valve won't open up. When the pressure is low, that valve opens up and there's a little spring that's pushed down by the high pressure. When the pressure is lower, that spring opens up and allows the chemical to come through this hose and get pulled out towards the hose where you're spraying. And so that's why it's called a downstream injector, because it's downstream from your pressure washing that you're spraying from. And so it does an effective job, usually around about 0.75% to 1% of the SH, assuming you're using 10 to 12% sodium hypochlorite. So this is typically what's useful for most situations in flat surfaces or house washes. It keeps you from getting too much bleach on anything, but every once in a while you run into a situation where there's heavy stains, and that's where the XJet comes in handy. So with the XJet, it comes with this system. It's a it's like a 4 or 5 gallon tote, and there's this little drop stick that if we untwist it, it siphons whatever liquid is in there from the bottom. And then it has this hose that goes from the XJet pail and into the spraying nozzle. And this spraying nozzle will always be a lower pressure, so you can use this exclusively for soft washes. And it connects straight into your gun. And so I can just put it here, you'll see. And so the biggest downside that people don't like about the XJet system is you have to carry the pail wherever you're going. And so there's a chance that it could tip over, you could spill bleach somewhere, and that will kill plants, it can kill grass, and you have to be really careful. And it's a lot of weight to carry around constantly, and you have to refill it. If you have a larger home, 5 gallons of bleach might not be enough to hit everything, especially if it's really, really bad buildup of organic growth. So it has its limitations with that in mind, but you can get by using this for everything. And I like it a lot because you can almost clean a roof with it. If there's not a lot of algae and you just want to hit it once, you can almost, I've soft washed a roof with minor buildup with good results. But typically that's when you'd upgrade to a direct pump where you have like a 12-volt soft wash system, is if you want to get roofs clean, because then you can get 50% bleach and 50% water and have a higher percentage. With these, you're kind of limited to about 3% SH, 3% bleach, or 3% of whatever liquid you're using. It cuts it to about 1 to 4 if you have the right setups. And if you order XJet, there will be charts that are involved where you can figure out exactly what percent is going to come out. And you can always fill up a bucket and see how many gallons get sprayed out within the course of a minute or two. And then from that, you can reverse engineer, figure out exactly what your percentage is going to be, depending on what you're spraying. So my go-to is usually the XJet, because I can also control it. I have this little valve on here, so I can stop it completely, or I can have it full blast, or I can go something in the middle. If I feel like there's some really heavily soiled areas, then I can go full blast. But then if I'm saying, okay, I'm using a little too much chemical for the rest of it, I want to turn it down a little bit, it's just kind of by feel. And I can just kind of experiment. I can use, based on the way the soap looks, I can have an idea of, you know, if it's strong enough or not, and you see how well it's working. And so you kind of feel it out over time. You get pretty accustomed to your own equipment. And I don't really do a scientific experiment every time. I just, you know, guess and check method. It was my favorite part of algebra, that you can literally just guess the answer, see if it fits into the equation. If not, you adjust it a little bit up or down. And so that's the benefit of XJet. And you can you can spray a lot of chemicals with that. Sometimes I'll even just take the XJet and I'll drop, instead of having it drop stick into this tub, I'll have a chemical, like if I'm hitting some rust spots that are a bigger portion, I'll take this XJet and just drop the hose straight into a gallon of the F9, whatever F9 product I'm using. Or I can always just go and dilute it. And with rust spots here in Texas, you can have these big old splotches and you don't want to hit everything around it. You just want to target that one spot. And most of those situations, I'll fill up my pump sprayer with whatever chemical I am, and I'll dilute it to whatever I think I need. Whether if it's really heavy, I might go 50% water and 50% of the F9 bark, and then I'll treat it, let it sit, hit it with a pressure washer, and go again. So having said that, the sequence of events, typically, most chemicals, there's a lot of, the jury's out depending on where you're from. Regions make a big difference. If you were in the southeast or somewhere where there's a lot of moisture, you get a lot of organic growth, maybe you're in Florida or maybe you're in the northeast and you have long winters, and so there's just a lot of time for that mold and algae to grow, well, then you're gonna have a little bit different philosophy than somebody who lives in a very dry, arid place, whether you're in the mountains of Colorado or somewhere like here in Texas. Maybe if you're closer to the desert, you never get moisture, and so you're dealing with dust and cobwebs, but you're not dealing with organic growth at all, hardly. So right where I'm at, we have kind of a healthy mix, but I'm able to go, and I don't usually have heavily soiled areas. And so you can pre-treat. That's when you spray bleach on everything first. Before you would pre-treat though, you want to make sure you soak the surrounding vegetation, whether it's grass or other plants that grow, bushes and flowers and all that. You want to pre-soak that with water, just straight water. And then once that's pre-soaked, and anything, like if you're doing a house wash, you want to tape off certain light fixtures, especially if there's like some type of a metallic surface that could react from the bleach or whatever chemical you're spraying. You want to tape those off and cover them up. You can get the 3M red tape from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it does a really good job at covering it up. You can pair that with some plastic and make sure everything's sealed. If they have outdoor speakers, you want to cover that up and protect their equipment. If they have something like one of those little fancy doorbells with the camera or outdoor cameras, you can take your own risks at your own leisure, but it's typically best practice to cover those up and make sure that they're sealed so they don't get anything corrosive onto the metals or the different elements that are on there. You want to protect their things. The last thing you want to do is have to foot the bill for them to hire an electrician who's going to bill them $150, $200 an hour, plus the equipment that they probably upcharge at least 10%, sometimes double the cost of the equipment. So protect yourself by protecting their things. Move all the furniture out of the way that could react with the chemicals. Make sure everything's adequately soaked. If you're doing the house wash, you want to spray the windows and spray the doors, anything that could interact. Oftentimes, if they have a really nice wood door or something that's painted, you have to watch out for certain colors of paint. So you want to definitely spot check, especially if it's blue or green. It's notorious to have natural pigments in it that will react with the bleach and change colors. And usually it comes out splotchy, so it's not all uniform, and you're gonna have to pay somebody to come out and repaint everything. So you wanna take a little bit of bleach, heavier dose than what you'd be spraying on there. Sometimes I'll just go straight bleach or 50% bleach and spot check it in one area that's inconspicuous in the back or on the side corner behind where the trash cans or something like that. And then from there I can see, okay, this bleach isn't doing anything harmful, I'm clear to go. If it does react, then I'm gonna be very careful. I'm not gonna spray that paint with any bleach. I might rinse it off, and I might go to the areas where bleach would work, like if they have stone in the different sections, I'll treat it as I need. But if it changes colors in a heartbeat, then I'm gonna put the bleach away. I'll use some soft wash, like a surfactant or some house mix that doesn't have bleach in it. And I'll let them know, hey, I can't use bleach on your surface, but I'll do what I can without using high pressure. Or I'll just say I'm not gonna house wash, but I'll do everything else. But typically you can still get by with doing a rinse, get rid of some of the cobwebs, and move on from there. But let's say you're doing flat surfaces or whatever, you treat it all with whatever chemical you're using. You wanna start with bleach. F9 is really good at walking you through that. Typically you wanna get the organic stuff first. So you can pre-treat, let it soak. Some people skip pre-treating, especially if they have heat. They'll just heat it with the heat and the pressure. Residential stuff, you don't really need the heat. You can get everything with chemicals. So if you're early on, you don't need to worry about investing in that. You can always buy a hot water burner later on to heat everything else up. So just start with the biggest gallon per minute unit that you can get in your budget and upgrade in the future. So 4 gallons to 8 gallons is ideal. I think 5.5 is ideal for residential because you can mount a 5.5 gallon unit on your truck still without needing to get a big old unit that you're towing around town. So I have an 8 gallon per minute, and I wish that I had a 5 gallon per minute machine that I could put on the back of my truck. So eventually we'll mount this onto a big truck and we'll have a smaller unit that we carry around with us on residential stuff. So again, we apply the chemical, optional. Some people don't want to apply the chemical at first, but it kills what's on the surface. You go over it and rinse it, or you use the pressure after that. And if there's anything left over, rust spots or other type of chemical stains, that's when you would apply additional chemicals. You treat the oil stain, you treat the rust stains, and typically for me, that's going to be an upgraded package where I'll do all the organic stuff for one price, but if they want to get chemical treatments, that's going to be another price where I'm going to charge them significantly more, at least 50% more, in order to do that extra equation, because you're going to have to pressure wash everything again. Plus you're gonna have to let whatever chemicals you are using dig into that, and it's gonna take a little bit longer. Once you've pressure washed everything, you pre-treat, you pressure wash, sometimes there might be lines in the ground because the pressure maybe wasn't adequate enough to remove all the stain, or if it's really heavy organic growth, you just need a little bit more extra sometimes. And so then you can post-treat it with some bleach, just a really light spray of bleach on it, ideally using a Downstream injector. That will be less than 1%, and that will be adequate to cover it. And it also will prevent anything from growing in the near timeline. But by the time the next rain comes, if you're using bleach, which is what you'd use for post-treating, that bleach will turn to salt and rinse away. And so a lot of people are terrified of the idea of using chemicals, but bleach or sodium hypochlorite is one of the safest things you can use for the environment, because it's essentially the same chemicals as what you would find in salt water in the ocean or in the pool in the backyard. Now it's a highly condensed version of that, so because of that it can burn you or it could be a little bit dangerous. Typically you want to let them know not to let their pets walk around for at least a couple of hours, for everything to kind of aerate and fumigate, and anything that could be harsh, it will evaporate into the air, and it's nothing that this ecosystem on this planet can't handle. And if it washes off into the side roads, we don't have to worry about the bleach interacting. It just turns to salt. So it's not a bad thing at all. What we do have to worry about, what you could get in trouble with, is if you're cleaning concrete and they have oil stains or gasoline that may have spilled, other heavy chemicals. When you wash the surface, that will get carried away with the water. And so technically, especially if you're close to the ocean, they're going to be more cautious. And there's laws saying that you can't allow that drainage water with all that chemical in it from this concrete or from whatever surface you're doing. You can't let that drain off into the waterways. And so you have to have a way to basically siphon it off. And so you can barricade the water, you can put things in place to help trap the water, and then pump it onto a location where you pump it and it just is able to settle into the water, and then that soil or sand or whatever is there will actually filter it so that when the water goes back into the water table underground, it gets filtered out naturally through the soil. So obviously you don't want to make it go onto something like a nice green patch of grass or into the bushes where they have expensive plants growing. You want to ideally put it into a place where it's just straight soil or where you can kind of control where it's going. Out here in Texas, it's not as big of a deal. We don't typically come across oil stains as often on a day-to-day, so we're not as concerned about it, but we keep it in the back of our mind and we're equipped for when the time calls for it. If you're on the coast, especially if you're in California or Florida, you need to be all the more careful with it. So I think that's enough explanation. If you have other questions or concerns about applying things, I'll kind of show you the sequence of what we do, the process of spraying and rinsing, but that's essentially what it comes down to. You spray the vegetation to clear it up, just to recap. Then you hit it with some bleach to loosen things up. Then you pressure wash it or soft wash it off, give it a good rinse and get the surface as clear as you can. If there's anything left over, you do a post treatment or you hit it with other chemicals to get the rust or oil stains. And then maybe one more rinse finally after that if you're doing an extra care. Once that's all done, you can carry on, wrap up your equipment and move on to the next job. Step one, we hook up our hose to the pressure washing unit. You can use a Hudson float valve. It's right there. Let's see if we can get there. And that Hudson float valve prevents the water from filling up above the level where it's placed. That way we don't get 275 gallons, almost 3,000 pounds of water in the tank. We'll keep it down to like 150 gallons for ours. But if you have a smaller unit, you don't even need that much. So, step two, you roll out your hose to where you need it. Step three, I'm gonna pull the choke on my machine, turn it on. It's gonna get really loud, and we're gonna go ahead and start preparing everything. Remember, spray, rinse everything, treat it with bleach, and then pressure wash. This is a DN10 valve. These are phenomenal. You put this on there and you can shut it off. And when it's shut off, you can remove whatever piece you're using. So I can take this, disconnect it, and hook it up to my surface cleaner without shutting off my pressure washer. And I need to get a new quick connect set on here soon. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plug it in. There we go. It's the beginning of spring. This has been through a whole winter. So I'm gonna have to replace some of the quick connects on here, but the valve itself will be good to go. I just turn that lever and now we're good to go. I'm gonna hit this driveway first and then go back over the walkway. Same order that we treated everything. This has been sitting for about 10 minutes at the most, but I'm pretty confident that we're ready to go. can kind of see here, I went a little too fast on purpose. If you move too fast, you're gonna get these little stripe lines. Now you can post-treat that with bleach and that would probably cure it, but it's better to just move a little bit slower and you might be able to avoid yourself a step later on. But right now I'm gonna go back over. Another thing you can do to prevent this or any other type of striping is to overlap where you went last time by about halfway. So I'm gonna hit my whole circle going right over the middle of the line between dirty and clean. That makes it so that I hit every part of the surface twice. If I'm not worried about that, if I'm going at adequate speed, you can make sure that little overlap is smaller. You don't have to worry about getting the whole thing. With that overlap, if you finish and you see a white line right where you overlapped, that means that you need to hit it again with some bleach to post-treat. That's what will cause the lines to be visible from the organic growth. So I'm gonna carry on now. Oh, before I carry on. So my goal here, I'm gonna hit the perimeter of this with the surface cleaner. When I have finished doing it, I start with the outside lines usually, and I'm being careful with my hose management so I don't have to go up and over my hose multiple times. I'm gonna have the hose over the areas that I've already cleaned and work further away from it. That way I never overlap it and it's easier to manage. As I'm going, I kind of get the perimeter colored in first and then color inside the lines from there. Once I'm done with that, I can go back with the pressure washer wand and just get the little pieces, the little bits that I can't fit in the corners with the surface cleaner. So I just touch up at the end with the wand. If there's little paint spots or splatters that I need to hit, I'll get some pressure on it at that point. So right now I'm noticing my pressure's a little bit low. I did not check my PSI before I began. I don't know what I did with my little, my PSI checking measurement device. But I don't need that so much. I can see I'm leaving lines behind, so I need to turn up the pressure a little bit. So come with me real fast. I'm gonna have to tighten it just a little bit. You tighten it too much, the pressure will get too high, and you'll have some type of an explosion. After we hit the majority of the concrete with the surface cleaner, we'll go ahead and get the edges with pressure if it's needed, and then we'll begin to just rinse everything down. You can see how this DN10 ball valve really works. It can lay on some pressure, and you don't even need to use the wand when you have it. We're just going to make sure we cut everything in, and once everything is completely clean, we'll hit it with a post-treatment. Just a little bit extra bleach to go around. All finished up. It's still got to dry, but it's nice and clean. No more spots, no more stains. We're good to go. So again, guys, I thank you for watching this far into the video. I'm always here to help you as much as I can, and I'll see you in the next video.